Hey guys, as I'm sitting here in post-production on this podcast, I realized that I screwed up the recording of the video and it's pretty much just centered on Brent for the first about 27 minutes of this 37-minute podcast or whatever it is. Sorry about that. I did get it fixed at the end and it will not happen again. So I know some people enjoy listening to it on YouTube, so that's why I posted here, but sorry. I don't, hopefully you don't come at me with pitchforks and stuff like that. I'm just learning how to record all this type of stuff. We're also going to be getting better webcams and things like that. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. We have on the brainchild of the podcast, basically the one that prompted us both to do it, is Mr. Brent Clausen. So Mr. Brent Clausen is a great friend. I've only known him for about a year, but I feel like it's been 10 years. So Brent, what do you got to say for yourself?
I feel the same way, dude. When you share the experiences that we've had already, like it's crazy. You bond, you grow.
Yeah.
We talk like boyfriend and girlfriend sometimes all the time anyway. So it's just one of those things. We skip the bullshit.
Yeah. It's pretty fun, man. It's good having a person you can trust out there for sure. So yeah, we are going to be doing Mount Hood mountaineering today. And here's the topics we're going to be covering. And the reason we are is because Brent has been doing a great job. Well, number one, staying on top of frickin' sending me all the Mount Hood rescues that are happening.
Ridiculous out there right now.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
So the things we're going to touch on real quick is really, so if you're thinking about climbing Mount Hood, this is going to be a great podcast for you. So we're going to be looking at why do people underestimate it, what you need to know, the mountains to begin with, hazards, and then skiing it. So Brent, why do you think people underestimate Mount Hood?
I think people underestimate it because it's the second most climbed mountain in the world. So you see so many pictures and it's always up there. So people automatically assume it's a hike. I hear that all the time. Like, oh yeah, I hear that's a great hike. And you couldn't be further from the truth. It's not a hike, it's a climb.
Yeah, it's definitely a climb. Yeah, maybe a hike to maybe like the seasoned mountaineers like freaking Conrad Anker and Jimmy Chin. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you always see beginner hike, right? And I know I don't know if you've heard that story of the lady in the heels that like climbed it at one point. Some lady climbed it in high heels or something. I don't know, dude. It's a weird kind of story, but yeah. So why don't we talk about, I guess, our first experiences with Hood? I know you had
a good one
that you'll never do again. You'll never do again. But why do you think, first of all, like before we get into it, like why do you think because you ended up kind of like, you kind of had like the wrong gear, right? Which is what I had too. I talk about it. But why do you think, what contributed to that, do you think? Like the wrong gear choices and stuff?
I think a lack of knowledge. The sport of splitboarding really was a little newer. The first time I went up, it wasn't there. It's really caught on the last few years. So there's a lot more information out there than when I was looking. And when I was looking for stuff for snowboarding or splitboarding, it's different than mountaineering gear. And the information I found was not good information, basically, is what it came down to, because there's a lot of bad information out there.
Around this. Yeah. And that's kind of similar to mine, right? Like, so you had summited though, and you had pretty much micro spikes on.
So yeah. I mean, I Googled what crampons fit on snowboard boots, because mountaineering crampons they fit on snowboard boots. I mean, that's what I have now, but they're kind of a pain. They're different. So I Googled it and I found these crampons, which are really no more than micro spikes, but I bought them off Amazon and they label them as crampons, but they aren't. I mean, they got what, a half-inch spike on them, maybe half inch. Like they're a joke.
Dude, so that's another good point, right? So you go on Amazon, the website says you need crampons, right? So you go on Amazon and you search crampons, and what do you find? Microspikes. Yeah. But they're called like micro crampons, or some of them are just called crampons. Yeah. So there's an issue right there.
Absolutely.
Especially when you don't know when you're.
Yeah, and if you wear those, like, I mean, I told you I felt great in them. I've put them on since wearing real crampons, and I couldn't be more scared when I'm wearing them. I'm like, oh, these are terrible.
Yep. Yeah, it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? And like I had a similar one where the first time I went to the Hog's Back, which I had read in some kind of peak bagging thing or whatever, like, yeah, usually people put on crampons around the Hog's Back, right? Or like at the Hog's Back, which is kind of at the Devil's Kitchen there, which is right before you start really kind of the more technical climbing. So I was wearing micro spikes and it was so icy, dude. And I got up to the Hog's Back and I remember there was some actual mountaineers up there and they looked at me and they're like, "You're up here in micro spikes?" And I'm like, "That's what the website said, dude. I don't know, man." Like, yeah. So
I think one thing to add to that, pretty much all the mountains around here, save your money and buy crampons. There's no, I mean, micro spikes, there's not much use for them in the Northwest. It's not like you have a lot of flat snow travel around here. You're usually starting at the base of a mountain and going vertical. So just get crampons.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on what your goals are, right? Like,
yeah.
But flat even on terrain, they're still good. Yeah. Right.
But there's not a lot of flat snow travel.
But I have used like micro spikes going up to like McNeil Point and stuff like in the late spring where there's still like snow on some higher angle stuff, but I don't want to wear crampons. But yeah, no, I know, especially like for what we're into now, the crampons are indispensable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never go back. I don't feel good when I wear my obviously you saw the crevasse class, how well that went. That was my last time wearing them on accident.
Oh, that's right. Because your wife had them right at one point or something.
And you know, this is a good point. That guy just the fall this week on Mount Hood, micro spikes. We just saw people at the Hog's Back this year with no micro spikes, and it's like, yeah, when it's sunny out, it's probably soft, but when it starts to turn back to ice and you're coming down, you need that. It's steep. You need it.
Putting some notes here because you just sparked my memory with some stuff.
That's a good
one. Why do you, or I guess, okay, so back to why people underestimate Mount Hood. I think you made a really good point with it is the most climbed mountain or second most climbed mountain in the world or something.
Yeah.
What's number one?
Fiji. Mount Fiji.
Oh, gotcha.
So okay. I mean, if you spend enough time on Hood, you'll catch people speaking European, and I just laugh, you know, because a lot of Europeans come over here and climb. It's just crazy to think. So
yeah, they're usually studs too.
Oh, absolutely.
They're studs, man. They're studs.
I think too. Point. A good thing that gets people in trouble up there is there's always other people up there. It's easy to get almost mob mentality. You're around other people that are going up. It stokes your confidence. Now, if you were out there alone, I think a lot of people would turn back. That get into, you know, a lot of the situations are on the way down. A lot of the falls or a lot of the panic attacks are after a summit. You know, it's the down part.
You know, that's a good point. Yeah. And another point to that is the fact that it looks like it's right there. From Timberline, it looks like it's a hop, skip, and a freaking jump to the top of the summit of Mount Hood. And, you know, another thing that we didn't talk about is a lot, some of the accidents that have happened is because people get lost up there, right? And so then they get into those giant cliffs, the big Mississippi Head or whatever, and it closes in so fast. I actually, no kidding, I was kind of like talking to this girl, and she like had this like guy that she was talking to at the same time, or they were boyfriend. I don't know what happened. I wasn't talking to her when they were dating. I'll just put it that way. But I was like researching him or whatever. Or like that sounds weird. I wasn't researching him. I looked at his
on him.
I was creeping on him. I was creeping on him. So I went to his Instagram profile, dude, and he posted a video of when he was summiting Hood solo by himself, and he got to within. He's like, I'm like 10 feet from the summit right now, and I have to turn back because I can't see. He started to down climb, and he's trying to hold his phone and talk. And he's like, dude, he says, I don't even know which way is up and down right now. So he built a snow cave. And when he had 1% battery left, triggered the response. This was in 2019, probably. They found him and he was in a snow cave and he was like stripped naked because of like hypothermia, that type of stuff where your brain just goes weird. Yeah, dude. Crazy. So people, yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of we need to make sure this is advice to beginner mountaineers. You know, if you've got some other peaks under your belt, then it's a different story for you. But if you don't, conditions make the biggest difference. You got to pick the right conditions to go up there because it is a dangerous place to be.
Good point.
You know,
good point. They always say, I know when I was doing research for it, they said, if there's, you have a weather window, but if like the next day is calling for clouds or rain or precipitation, you should be very cognizant of that because those clouds can move in earlier than expected. And there could be a cloud ceiling there and then you're not going to get out of it. And you're going to end up like that, dude. Yeah, it's a good point. Cool. Yeah. Well, so I guess we kind of touched on number 2, which is what you need to know, correct gear, correct season. So when do you think is the best time to summit Mount Hood?
It's definitely the springtime. I think it's the safest time. It's the best conditions. You're going to get the longest weather windows. That's for sure. I mean, winter can be deceiving because a sunny day in the spring, you're almost guaranteed that it's going to get slushy or corn, a sunny day in the winter could still just be a sheet of ice and chicken heads up there. It's not, right. There's no guarantees in winter. You really got to understand the weather and know what you're doing. If you're going to do a winter summit, you need to understand a lot more than just it being a sunny, hot day, which the spring is, April, right. May, June, you're getting into the 40 plus degree days and it's going to be boot packed already and
boot pack and corn for the ski down. Well, you had made a good point because I climbed it a few weeks ago, right? Which is winter, but you had said, go a little bit later because one, the snow will be better to ski because it'll be turning to corn and then maybe you can actually get like a boot pack up there, which we summited at about 9 a.m., which means we were at like some of those tough parts around 7 and 8. And it was ice. I mean, it was completely ice and it was pretty scary. But by the time we did get down to ski, which was about noon or somewhere around there, I don't know, 11 o'clock, maybe noon, dude, it was corn and it was freaking awesome. So like, even if you are just going to the Hogsback to ski, go later because that was good advice, I thought.
Yeah, it's one of those things like learning to read pay attention to the weather patterns year round so you can compare it to a different day you're out. Doesn't have to be Mount Hood, but any mountain you go to, if you're watching the weather, you kind of learn it. And I think people underestimate that, especially during the winter, of how one day could be 35 degrees and icy up there. Another day could be 35 degrees and good. It just really depends on what does the week before look like, the day before, even the wind. The wind is a huge factor because it could be 40 degrees, but if the wind's 50 miles per hour, it's ice.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. A really good account to follow is Portland Mountain Rescue, right? Was that what you had sent me?
Rescue.
Portland Mountain Rescue. They give really good updates on conditions. Now, when my story of when I went to Summit, I got kind of freaked out the day before because I was talking to some people who knew a guy that came down that route and said, oh, like someone's going to die this week. And it was absolutely terrifying. The crevasse was wide open, all this stuff, right? And Brent's like, here, check out Portland Mountain Guides. And they're like, oh, it's pretty good for climbing. You know, some chicken heads, skiing wasn't the best, but nothing about anything, right? And we were already kind of skeptical of the first report because Brent and I went in there up to the Hogsback a couple weeks prior to when I summited, and it was barely there. And that was when we didn't have any snow. So fear mongering can play a big role in it. And so you want to have credible sources. So Portland Mountain Rescue is a great one. Sometimes the Facebook groups can be good, PNW Mountaineers, but sometimes they make you feel like an idiot when you ask a question.
I like to same like your story stalking that dude when on the Mountaineers one Facebook group, I always click on whoever's commenting and I see like I look through their photos like, has this guy really, does he do a lot of climbing or is he just commenting and I don't need to take his advice? I do a little vetting on that one, but Portland Mountain Rescue is they're
legit.
Yeah. They're legit. Yeah, for sure. And you see those guys up there on Hood all the time. So
yeah. Good point.
They're go-to.
So say we want to, well, put it this way. I have got a lot of questions from people when I had posted in the Facebook group, and they were like, hey, do you think I'm ready to climb Mount Hood? This is what I've climbed before. And they would say Mount St. Helens or South Sister, blah, blah, blah. And I told them this, and this is what someone had told me last year. I said, if you have to ask me this question, you're probably not ready to climb Mount Hood. I don't know how many times I asked you that, Brent. I was like, how is this compared to Hood? Do you think I'm ready to climb Hood? Blah, blah, blah. Like I was constantly assessing if I had what it was to climb Hood. At this point last year, I did not have what it took to climb Mount Hood because I was asking that question. Before I summited it, I felt ready to roll. So what do you have for advice with that? What are some mountains you would recommend?
So some advice on that is for sure go up to the Devil's Kitchen or Hogsback a few times. That is a really good, like you said, from Timberline parking lot, it doesn't look that far. When you get into the Devil's Kitchen and you're committed to only going to the Devil's Kitchen, that takes the pressure off you of trying to summit. Like you've already made your plan. You get up there and you get a feeling for how big everything is up there. It's different than, Mount St. Helens or South Sister. It's such a good point. World.
Such a good point, man. Yeah, the steel cliffs or whatever they call them, and just and you're hearing the ice fall and you're smelling the sulfur and it's another world. It's otherworldly up there. And like you said, it looks not intimidating because Timberline Lodge, a very popular resort where there's tens of millions of people there, is right there, it seems like. But it is probably 3 miles up or something to the Devil's Kitchen around.
Yeah, around 4 miles. And even that, how many people I've told that I know don't want to get into mountaineering, but have done Mount St. Helens or they've done. I tell them to go to Devil's Kitchen. I'm like, you will get, you don't have to summit. If that's not your thing, I recommend people that like going on big hikes or some of the walk up mountains to just go up to Devil's Kitchen because that's worth it alone. It's a very cool place in itself.
Yeah, no, such a good point. And you get more of a feel of what it would really be like to summit. Yeah.
So, but talking about mountains to begin with, I think if you get out in the springtime and hit like a Middle Sister, as long as there's some snow, that'll get you some exposure, some steepness. It'll get you comfortable with having to do a little bit of a boot pack on some. It could be ice. It seems to stay in the shade right there. so it ices up. It was pretty firm and icy when we did it last year.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
definitely a good one.
for context, this is going to be mostly PNW specific. So if someone
Yeah.
does, if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest, I guess you probably wouldn't know. But Middle Sister is one of the three sisters in Central Oregon. So actually, it's right next to South Sister. It's right, yeah, it's the next mountain over. but
Yeah.
but a little more technical for sure than just kind of a walk up. But yeah, absolutely, it definitely gives you a little bit. And that's kind of what we've talked about and what we have in our notes is like being comfortable with exposure is like one of the biggest things. One of the biggest things. And Middle Sister, you get that Brothers Mountain, which is in the Olympic National Forest, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
That has that little couloir, the hourglass couloir we did, and we boot packed up that. Unfortunately, one of our buddies that we have tried tooth and nail to get onto the podcast actually slipped on Brothers Mountain, and Brent definitely thought he was dead. He looks back up at me. Yeah, Brent looks back up at me. Are you seeing this? And so our buddy, what happened was he ended up slipping in the couloir, and he tried self-arresting, and he could not do it. He tried shoving his axe down, and he was just sliding on his butt, and it was going straight for this rock outcropping. Somehow, I mean, how many seconds do you think he was sliding? It felt
it felt like forever. So I'm going to be a terrible judge at that, but it was scary. Very scary.
Yeah. Probably 5 to 10 seconds. He was like, just like, can't self-arrest. And somehow he ends up just stopping because it was very, very soft snow.
I think there was a little bit of if he would have went to the left, that kept, because there's a split there that goes around. And if he would have went more to the left, it would have ran out to more vert, but it kind of flat. And I think he just lost some speed. But if those were different conditions, that would have been different results. It could have been terrible.
If that would have been a condition where it was like a winter Mount Hood ascent, like I did, or we'll talk about a little bit later that Mount McLaughlin, where it freaked me out. Yeah, if it was something like that, he would have been gone. He also would have been gone if that would have happened in that second part of that couloir. So it happened to be at the best spot, and that freaked him out a little bit. That freaked him out. And mind you, this is a guy that was wanting to climb Mount Hood that year and telling me it's just Mount Hood. It's just Mount Hood. So there you go. There you go. Not to shit on David. He's a good dude, though.
No, when it can happen to any of us. I think it's key to always just be thinking of what can go wrong so you can prepare.
Yeah. Well, you're a freaking master at plunge stepping.
Yeah. Well, that just comes with comfort. That I think and that's another good point. Like, go on these mountains and take it serious that it's practice for the next, big mountain. Like we had that little side traverse at Middle Sister. You just run into different situations that the risk might not be there, but it's good practice for when you're on a mountain that has risk.
Such good practice. And there's like the different techniques, like the French technique where you kind of like step over your crampons. That's another thing. Walking with crampons is a whole nother ball game too. If you've never walked with crampons, you're going to be sticking yourself in the calf every other step. I mean, my first time in crampons, which was at kind of Middle Sister, which is my first long duration in crampons, my freaking little pants have all these tiny holes in them now because I wasn't being aware of how the heck I was stepping.
And yeah, to that point is that's how falls happen too. So you definitely want to get used to not catching your pant leg and crampons, because you don't want to do that on Hood.
Yeah.
But I think those two mountains are getting yourself out on the snow is important. The spring slush, because you're going to be on snow on Hood no matter what. You're not going to climb it in the summer. It's just not happening. So you need to be comfortable in crampons and at least in spring conditions.
Right. Yep. when you're on Mount Hood, there's a few different hazards you definitely need to be aware of. And I would say I really experienced this on my summit, which was the ice fall. And I got it in my video too. It actually whacked my GoPro right off my head, off my helmet. And that was scary, dude. You're out in the open, and a lot of people say that most of the accidents occur on Mount Hood because of other people, or a lot of them do occur because of other people. But it's not only that you could fall, but it's also that you could get struck in the head by a rock or an ice fall, right? So helmets, definitely mandatory on that. Definitely mandatory.
Yeah. You going back to talking about these posts from Portland Mountain Rescue, the one I sent you this week,
Yeah.
that whole helmet got split open by a chunk of ice. That just shows
Yes.
you how powerful these balls of ice are coming
Yes.
down. They hurt
Yes.
too. You know, I
They're
took
flying.
one in the thigh. Yeah.
Yep. I had bruises. Yeah. One of the guys when I was down climbing actually had told me, he seemed like an experienced dude. He said, dude, when someone says ice, number one, you should always be like ice to people, below you. But if someone says that, you want to be into that wall, like secured, jab your ice axe into that wall, get as secure as you can, kind of be as a turtle. You're going to have your helmet. So kind of, push that into or kind of, go in like a turtle. I don't know how the hell to say it, other ways to say it. And basically just let the rock or ice hit you in the head. But the point is if you get knocked out, you're secured to the ledge. And if you get knocked out, you won't just fall, right? Someone can help you, or you can come to. That made a lot of sense to me. And so after that, it's like, dude, you're the man. I appreciate that advice. Yeah.
That's everyone's gonna always help on Mount Hood. Or in the mountains in general. You know what I mean? People are awesome up there. So you're gonna get good advice. I think when we were talking about plunge stepping, actually a guy kind of showed me on Hood, just randomly, is like in the middle of the pearly gates. It's like,
really?
Do you know how to play? Yeah. I was like, no, not really, dude. I've seen a YouTube, but I don't feel comfortable. And he's like, kind of ran me through the basics, I guess.
That's so cool. And that's such a great point. I thought the same thing, dude. Like when I was climbing and everybody's saying rock, and and we're all kind of, in this kind of weird sufferfest together, it did feel like a giant team that you were working together with. So yeah, the mountaineering community is pretty cool. I do like it. Besides the Facebook groups, those can be, me in Facebook groups, man.
Well, social media is a bad place to talk to each other, right?
In general, yes, it can be. So it can be. What else we got for hazards?
We got I altitude on Mount Hood is a weird one, right? Because typically I do pretty good in altitude. I think it's a combination of the sulfur up there and the right around when you're passing Illumination Rock and getting above 9,000 feet, and that sulfur's floating down to you. It just it can feel draining sometimes, almost like you're getting your butt kicked a little. And it's different than elevation sickness I felt before. It's more of like a headache feeling. It's not so 100%. Much. It's a weird thing. And I think it's a combination of the sulfur and altitude.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Last time when we went up, we just went to the Hog's Back, but we spent forever up there. We came back down and I said, dude, I got to leave. Like I thought I was altitude sick. I was this close to throwing up, but you're only at 10,000 feet there or something. It's not that high, but that sulfur will creep up on you. I mean, and people have died because they fall into the crevasse or whatever, or somewhere around there. They can't get out, and then they get killed by the sulfur.
I'm pretty sure a lady died actually just from hanging out at the Devil's Kitchen for too long, or by one of the funerals. They were sitting there too long and died from, I want to say, asphyxiation or something.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what killed her was sitting next to it for too long and inhaling that sulfur kills you,
Well,
And
and it
so
smells.
obviously it's going to make you sick.
Yeah. I mean, it smells. I mean, you can smell it. It smells like rotten eggs and I don't know what else, but
When we were up there and there's less snow and it's more open, I got in my car and I could smell it on my clothes. I was like, oh man,
yeah,
that,
that's right. I remember you saying that. I remember you
yeah.
saying that. Mhm.
So it's real.
Then you have, yeah, so you already covered altitude. And then there's the crevasse, which is called the Bergschrund, I believe, which is basically
Yep.
when a glacier separates from the side of the mountain. I did some research on this. And yeah, I got to say, like, I saw it a little bit when I was up there climbing, but didn't appear to be any kind of an issue. I don't think it's like, I mean, some people will rope up on that, but I don't see it too often. I don't think.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be, those people doing it are gonna be like early season when it's open, and you don't want to be up there if you're not capable, kind of thing.
Sure.
And then maybe late spring, I guess, if
Right.
people are still climbing it. But it's funny how much that mountain just slows down once you get past, spring.
Right.
Just empties
Yeah.
out.
Well, and that's because of the frickin' rock fall. Then now you're
Yeah.
contending with the rock fall that was ice fall in the winter, but that's why spring is like this really good middle ground of you're not getting too much rock fall or ice fall, and then you can actually have steps to kick in to climb up. Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Lead us into skiing, Brent. Lead it or splitting it. What do you think?
Splitting it. God, you never know what you're gonna get into. That's for sure. You've been up there when it's like earlier a few seasons ago, a couple years ago when I first started splitting, I would go up when it snowed 18 inches, right? And I'm like, oh, I should get some POW. It's gonna be awesome. And it's a sheet of ice, and
Because it was
oh
wind
well, I
blown.
guess I
Because it was
because it was wind
65
blown,
mile per
yes.
hour winds.
And
Yeah.
I'm stupid, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go all the way up to the Devil's Kitchen. Well, then your chicken heads, blue ice, just like not even really that fun. Like it just you're really getting you got to pay attention during the winter for those best conditions. But if you're going during the spring, you can get a summit in, and then you get that reward of that corn snow. I mostly call it slush. But it's nothing's better. It's wide open. It's a great ride from.
It is. It is. It is such a good ride, man. And it is forever, it seems like. I mean,
oh yeah, dude.
it's like 5,000 vertical feet. You're pretty much
and
going
you're
down.
just stoked when you get down. You know what I mean? You're just so
stoked.
jacked.
You're so jacked. Dude, it's so fun. I will say that I didn't know what in the hell corn snow was until the other week when I skied it. I'd already heard that term, but it was sweet. I loved it, man. It was easy to ride. Yeah.
It's almost like the same as riding POW to me. It's kind of weird. I get a lot of joy from it. I always tell people that they want to learn how to either split board, snowboard. I'm like, learn in the spring. It's awesome. You can be in a t-shirt. You have control. It doesn't hurt when you fall. It's very comparable to riding. Everybody always wants to learn how to ride POW. And I'm like, shit, spring's fun.
Oh, people are probably people are going to revolt this podcast when I say this, but I kind of like corn snow more than powder.
Well, don't go that far.
And that's because I can ride it better, man. I have a heck of a time riding powder sometimes. I don't know. I got to get better at that, but
that's an art in itself too.
It is. It is. That is kind of about it though for Mount Hood for me. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
I don't have anything. I would just say that if I know that it can be scary to ask someone a question, but if you do, just ask me. We're always looking to help people. We might have missed something that is a no-brainer that someone's sitting there going, well, what about this? What about that? Just ask people. You want to be prepared for this mountain. You want it to be a good experience. Um,
You don't want to be in the
get
newspaper.
serious.
Yeah.
No, you don't. And you don't want to lose your life.
You don't want to be on the
wanna take that
newspaper.
risk.
You don't want to lose your life. I will say this, when I first moved to Oregon, that was the first thing I heard, was that this pastor went to the summit and then he fell off. I don't know if it was because of the cornices, which that's another thing to watch out for when you're on the summit. There's a lot of cornices. And I just remember that from that day, I was like, I'll never do that. And then every year you always hear about rescues and deaths. There's always a few deaths on Hood. And look, it's not like that with South Sister. It's not like that with Mount St. Helens. And there's a reason for that. And that's because Mount Hood is underestimated, and it's because Mount Hood is more dangerous. So don't
It's a
underestimate
true
it.
beginner technical climb, and you got to treat it as a climb. You got to also, one other thing I want to make sure is when you're going up it, just remember you got to come back down. I think I saw a lot of people panicking and having panic attacks on the down climb part. And it's like, really, you got to think about those things. If you're getting nervous on the way up, you're probably going to be more nervous on the way down. So
Going up is, what is it? Going up is optional. Getting down is mandatory. Boom. Mic drop. The best thing that you can do to summit Mount Hood is probably to subscribe to this podcast and leave it a 5-star rating. That's what I would say. I don't know about you.
I'm not superstitious or anything, but
look, I hear if you don't do that, it's going to rain on your next backpacking trip. I don't know. That's just what people say. But all right, later.